The explosions lit up space like deadly fireworks. Commander pressed her face against the cold metal wall of her cell and watched Terra Station burn. 3 days ago, it had been humanity's pride. The massive orbital platform had protected Earth for 20 years. Now it was just twisted metal and floating debris. His hands were bound with energy chains that glowed blue in the dim light. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood, but her eyes stayed sharp. She counted the escape pods drifting away from the dying station. Good. Most of her people had made it out alive. The cell door opened with a soft hiss. Admiral walked in, his 4 eyes studying her like she was an interesting bug. He was tall, even by human standards, with gray skin that looked like stone. His uniform was perfect, not a single mark on it. Behind him, 2 guards carried plasma rifles. "Commander," said in accented English. His voice was deep and smooth, like a professor giving a lecture. "I wanted to speak with you personally before we proceed." Said nothing. She had learned long ago that silence often told her more about her enemies than words ever could. Walked to the small window. Outside, his fleet hung in space like a wall of death. Hundreds of ships, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Their dark hulls reflected the light from Earth's sun, making them look like metal sharks waiting to feed. "Your species fought well," he continued. Much better than the colonies. You destroyed 37 of my ships. That is impressive for such a young race." He turned back to her, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "But now Terra Station is gone. Your fleet is scattered across 3 star systems. Your planet has no shields, no defense platforms, no way to stop what comes next." Finally looked at him. What comes next? Surrender, submission, integration into the hegemony. Moved closer to her cell. "You will broadcast a message to your people. Tell them to lay down their weapons. Tell them their resistance is over." "And if I refuse?" Smiled. It was not a pleasant sight. "Then I will burn every city on your planet until someone else agrees to do it." Knew he meant it. She had studied the reports from other worlds they had conquered. They always gave the defenders a chance to surrender first. If that failed, they turned entire continents into glass. 17 worlds had learned this lesson. 17 civilizations had bent the knee rather than face extinction. "Your species has potential," said, walking around her cell like a predator circling prey. "Strong bodies, quick minds. You could serve the hegemony well. Your children could grow up in a galaxy where humanity has a place, even if that place is beneath us." He stopped in front of her again. "Or they could die today, along with everyone else on that blue world. The choice is yours, Commander." Looked past him to the window. Earth hung there like a jewel against the black of space. Blue oceans, white clouds, brown and green continents. 7 billion people going about their lives, not knowing that their fate was being decided in a prison cell above their heads. She thought about her daughter Maya, 16 years old, full of dreams and questions and fierce determination. Maya was safe now, far away from this war, but that safety depended on what did next. What she said in the next few minutes would decide whether humanity lived as slaves or died as free people. "You know," said finally, "I expected this conversation to be different." Raised one eyebrow. "How so?" "I thought you would try to convince me that surrender was logical, that resistance was pointless, that my people would be better off under your rule." Shrugged as much as the energy chains would allow. "Instead, you just threaten to kill everyone. It's disappointing." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "You think this is a negotiation. Your forces are destroyed. Your world is defenseless. You have nothing left to bargain with." "Don't I?" Something in his tone made pause. He studied her face, looking for signs of desperation or madness. Instead, he saw something that disturbed him. She was calm. Too calm for someone who had just lost everything. "Commander, perhaps the stress of defeat has affected your thinking," he said carefully. "Let me be clear about your situation. Terra Station is destroyed. Your fleet is broken. Earth has no defenses. You have lost. Looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. It was not the broken smile of someone trying to be brave. It was not the mad grin of someone who had snapped under pressure. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "Have I?" she asked. The smile unsettled more than screams would have. In 17 conquests, he had never seen a defeated commander look at him like that. Rage, he understood. Despair, he expected. Defiance was common enough. But this quiet confidence in the face of total defeat, this was something new. "Yes," he said firmly. "You have lost, accept it." Smile grew wider. "Admiral, tell me something. In all your conquests and all your victories, what exactly did you think you were fighting for?" "I fight for the glory of the hegemony, for order in the galaxy, for the expansion of civilization." "And what does that mean, really?" Felt a flash of irritation. "It means bringing lesser species under proper guidance. It means creating a unified galaxy under law." "But what were we fighting for?" The question hung in the air between them. Realized he had never really thought about it. He knew what humans fought with ships, weapons, tactics. He knew where they fought in space, in asteroid fields, around orbital platforms. But what drove them to fight so hard for a cause that was clearly hopeless? "Survival," he said finally. "The same thing all species fight for." Shook her head. "No, Admiral, that's what you fight for. We fight for something else entirely." She looked out at Earth again, her smile softening into something almost tender. "And that's something else. That's what you forgot to protect." Stared at for several long seconds. Her smile had faded, but that strange confidence remained in her eyes. It bothered him more than he wanted to admit. In his experience, defeated enemies either broke completely or fought uselessly to the end. They did not sit calmly making cryptic statements about things he had forgotten to protect. "Enough games," he said sharply. "You will record a surrender message, or I will begin orbital bombardment in 1 hour." "What exactly do you want me to say?" "Tell your people that resistance is over. Tell them to surrender all military assets and prepare for occupation. Tell them that humanity's future depends on cooperation with the hegemony." Nodded slowly. "And what happens to us after that?" Began packing again, his hands clasped behind his back. "Your world will become a resource extraction center. Your people will work in our mines and factories. Your minds will serve in our research facilities. Your strongest will join our armies to help conquer other worlds." Slaves, in other words. "Productive citizens of the hegemony," corrected. "Your children will grow up speaking. They will learn proper history, not the primitive myths your species tells itself. They will become part of something greater than themselves." "Something greater," repeated. "Tell me, Admiral, what do you know about human culture?" The question seemed to come from nowhere. Frowned. "Enough. You are a violent species that somehow developed space travel despite your chaotic nature. You fight constantly among yourselves. You waste resources on art and entertainment instead of useful activities. What else? You reproduce slowly and care too much about individual lives. It makes you weak in war but useful as workers. Your tendency to form emotional bonds can be exploited for control." He shrugged. "Standard psychological profile for a newly conquered species." Looked thoughtful. "Is that really all your intelligence services told you about us?" "Why would I need to know more? I study your weapons, your tactics, your defenses. Everything else is irrelevant to conquest." "Irrelevant," murmured. "Interesting choice of words." She closed her eyes for a moment, and her mind drifted back to 6 months ago. The meeting had been held in a bunker deep beneath Geneva, far from any listening devices or orbital surveillance. The room had been small, cramped with representatives from every major nation and colony. She remembered how tired they all looked, how the weight of coming war had pressed down on everyone. "They will be here within the year," General had said, his voice grim. Our best estimates give us 3 months to prepare after their advance scouts arrive, maybe less. Our fleet won't be enough, Admiral had added. Even with every ship we can build, we're outnumbered 50 to 1. Terra Station might hold them for a few days, but that's all. Had stood up then, carrying a thick folder marked with the highest security classifications. Which is why we need the Heritage Protocol. Most of the people in that room had never heard the name before. It was too sensitive, too important to risk in normal channels. Had spent 2 years developing it with a small team of specialists from fields that had nothing to do with military planning. Heritage Protocol assumes we cannot win a conventional war, she had explained. So we don't fight a conventional war, we fight something else entirely. The folder had contained ship designs but not warships. Cultural preservation vessels disguised as refugee evacuation ships. Each one would be massive, capable of carrying not just people but entire ecosystems, libraries, art collections, and something much more dangerous than weapons. While the study our military capabilities had continued, we will be protecting what really matters, not just human lives but human ideas, human creativity, human ways of thinking. General had frowned. Commander, with respect, we need weapons, not museums. What if they're the same thing? Opened her eyes and found watching her. He had stopped packing and was studying her expression with those 4 alien eyes. You were remembering something, he said. My daughter. Ah yes, Maya, age 16, currently attending university on Luna Colony, smiled coldly. Do not worry, she will be unharmed as long as you cooperate. All civilian populations will be treated well under hegemony rule. Felt a flash of satisfaction. Thank you for confirming that. Confirming what? That your intelligence is as limited as I thought. Looked directly at him. Maya hasn't been on Luna for 3 months. Neither have most of the people you think you're holding hostage. His confident expression flickered slightly. Explain. While your scouts were watching our military installations, mapping our defense networks, and counting our warships, we were quietly moving our most precious resources out of your reach. She remembered the day Maya had left. Her daughter had been angry, of course. 16-year-olds did not want to be sent away from their friends, their lives, their plans. They especially did not want to be told it was for their own safety. This is stupid, Mom, Maya had said, her dark eyes flashing with frustration. I want to stay and help fight. You will be helping, had replied, though she could not explain how. Not yet. Not until the Heritage Fleet was safely beyond detection range. By running away. Had pulled her daughter close then, breathing in the smell of her hair, memorizing the feel of her heartbeat. By carrying something more important than any weapon we could ever build. Maya had not understood then. She was young, full of fire and the certainty that problems could be solved with enough determination and clever thinking. She would understand later when the real war began. Was looking less confident now. You sent refugees away, that is expected behavior, it changes nothing. Refugees, said thoughtfully, is that what your reports called them? Civilian evacuation vessels, 47 ships carrying approximately 2 million non-essential personnel to outer colonies. He paused. Standard protocol for species facing conquest. Non-essential personnel, repeated, and her smile returned. Oh, Admiral, you have no idea what you just said, do you? Explain now. Stood up as much as her restraints would allow. Those 47 ships you dismissed as irrelevant. Each one is bigger than your flagship. Each one carries advanced technology that your scientists have never seen. And each one is crewed by the people you called non-essential. Civilians have no military value. Teachers, artists, philosophers, musicians, writers, engineers who design for beauty instead of efficiency, scientists who ask questions because they're curious, not because they're ordered to. voice grew stronger with each word. Doctors who heal because they love life, parents who would die for their children, children who dream of impossible things and then make them real. Was frowning now. You are describing weakness. Am I? Tell me, Admiral, when you conquered those 17 worlds, what did you actually take? Territory, resources, populations. But what did those populations know? What did they create? What did they dream about? Leaned forward. You took their bodies, their planets, their possessions, but did you ever think about taking their ideas? Felt something he had not experienced in many years, uncertainty. The human commander was speaking in riddles, but there was something behind her words that made his skin crawl. He had conquered 17 worlds. He understood war. He understood victory and defeat. What was she talking about? Ideas are not weapons, he said firmly. Ideas do not win battles. Don't they? Asked. Admiral, why do your people fight? For the glory of the hegemony, for expansion, for order. But why do those things matter? Found himself growing irritated. They matter because they advance civilization, because they make us stronger. And what happens when you die? The question hit him like a physical blow. What? You personally, Admiral, when you die, what happens to your glory? What happens to your conquests? They become part of the hegemony's legacy. Do they? Or do they just become territory controlled by whoever comes after you? Tilted her head. Tell me about the first world you conquered. What was it called? Had to think for a moment. 442B. What do you call it now? Mining Platform 7. And what do you know about the people who lived there? Again paused. They resisted for 6 months, underground fighting. We eliminated the resistance leaders and relocated the population to work centers. What did they call their world? That information was not considered relevant. Nodded. What about their language, their history, their art, their stories? Did you learn any of that? Why would I? Dead cultures have no strategic value. Dead cultures, repeated softly. That's the difference right there, Admiral. You think culture can die. She looked out the window again toward Earth. In the distance, she could see the first of ships moving into bombardment position. Soon, he would start his attack. Soon, those weapons would turn cities into ash and people into memories. But that was not the end of the story. That was just the beginning. Let me tell you about those 47 ships, she said. Each one carries 10,000 people, but they also carry something else. Libraries with every book ever written in human languages. Art galleries with paintings and sculptures and music from every culture on Earth. Genetic samples from every ecosystem. Complete records of our history, our science, our philosophy. Museum ships, said dismissively. Preserving the past while the present dies, it changes nothing. Does it? What do you think happens when those ships reach other star systems? When they make contact with other species? They will be destroyed or incorporated into the hegemony, like everything else. Shook her head. They will share. Share what? Everything. Stories about a world where people choose their own leaders. Music that makes you cry even if you've never heard it before. Art that shows you beauty you never imagined. Scientific discoveries made by people who were curious instead of ordered to discover. She stood up again, her chains rattling. Tell me, Admiral, how many species in your hegemony know that there are other ways to live? Frowned. Other ways are inefficient. The hegemony provides optimal organization. Optimal for what? For expansion, for resource extraction, for maintaining order. But what if someone asked a different question? What if someone asked what would be optimal for happiness, for creativity, for love? Love actually laughed. Love is a chemical reaction that interferes with rational decision-making. The hegemony has moved beyond such primitive drives. Has it? Then why do your people keep rebelling? The question hit like a plasma bolt. His 4 eyes narrowed. There are no rebellions in hegemony space. Really? What about the protests on Zephyr Prime last year? The work strikes in the Altair system. The underground network spreading forbidden art across 3 sectors. His hands clenched into fists. That information was classified at the highest levels. How could a human commander from a primitive world know about internal hegemony security matters? Your intelligence networks are impressive, he said carefully. We don't need intelligence networks, replied. We just need to understand something you've forgotten. Which is? That ideas really are weapons, but not the way you think. Looked directly at him. You've spent so much time learning how to take things from other people that you've forgotten how to give things to them. The hegemony gives order, security, purpose. Does it, or does it just take freedom and call the result order? Found himself backing toward the door. This conversation was going in directions he did not like. The human was supposed to be defeated, broken, ready to surrender. Instead, she was talking about concepts that made his mind itch. You are trying to distract me with philosophy, he said. It will not work. Your world will surrender or it will burn. You're right, said. One of those things will definitely happen. But here's what you haven't figured out yet, Admiral. It doesn't matter which one. Of course it matters. The difference between surrender and death is everything. Is it? Let me ask you something else. When you conquered those 17 worlds, what did you really get? Straightened his uniform. Resources, territory, workers, strategic positions. But what did those worlds want most? Before you arrived, what were their people trying to do with their lives? Irrelevant primitive pursuits, entertainment, art, exploration for its own sake. And after you conquered them, they work for the greater good of the hegemony. But do they still want those irrelevant things? Paused. The answer was yes, of course. Security reports consistently mentioned problems with workers requesting time for unnecessary activities. Music, stories, games, picture-making. It was inefficient, but suppressing it completely had proved difficult. Primitive instincts fade over time, he said. Do they? How much time? You've controlled some of those worlds for 50 years. Are there people more now, or are your overseers starting to ask why their subjects seem to enjoy life more than they do? The question hit too close to home. Had read reports about integration problems. Nothing serious, of course, just questions. Young asking why conquered peoples sang while they worked, why they told stories to their children, why they created beautiful but useless objects. Cultural contamination is a known issue, he admitted. It is managed through proper education. Education about what? About the superiority of methods, about the importance of order and efficiency. Smiled again, and how's that working out? Did not answer. He was thinking about his own nephew, who had recently requested permission to learn one of the conquered languages. For research purposes, the boy had said, to better understand subject populations, but had seen the way his nephew's eyes lit up when he talked about the poetry he was translating. You want to know what we're really fighting for, Admiral? Continued. We're fighting for the right to ask questions you've never thought of. We're fighting for the right to love things that serve no purpose except making us happy. We're fighting for the right to be imperfect and chaotic and gloriously, beautifully human. Those rights mean nothing if you are dead. Don't they? Smile grew wider. Tell me, Admiral, what do you think happens when 47 ships full of humans reach the edges of your empire, when they meet your people and start sharing those useless human things? Was about to answer when alarms began blaring throughout his ship. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside cell, and he could hear his crew running to battle stations. His personal communicator buzzed urgently. Admiral, came the voice of his tactical officer. We have multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace, unknown signatures. Press the communicator. How many ships? 47 vessels, sir. They're massive. Smile had returned, brighter than ever, right on time. glared at her. Your reinforcements are too late. Even if you had a secret fleet, it cannot match the power of the hegemony. Reinforcements, laughed. Oh, Admiral, you still don't understand, do you? The cell's communication screen flickered to life, showing the space around Earth. His breath caught in his throat. The ships emerging from hyperspace were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were enormous, each one easily 3 times the size of his flagship. Their hulls gleamed white and silver, covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift in the light. "What are those?" he whispered. "The Heritage Fleet," said proudly. 47 ships carrying 2 million humans and everything we couldn't bear to lose. One of the ships was moving closer to the screen's viewpoint. Could see details now that made his skin crawl. The hull wasn't just decorated, it was covered in images. Pictures of humans, animals, landscapes, abstract designs that seemed to tell stories without words. Even the weapon ports were artistic, shaped like flowers or waves or spiraling galaxies. "Impossible," he said. "Those are civilian vessels, museum ships. They have no weapons." "Don't they?" As if responding to his words, the leading ship began to change. Panels on its hull slid open, revealing not the standard gun barrels or missile tubes expected, but something far more disturbing. Crystalline structures emerged, pulsing with soft light. They looked like musical instruments or sculptures, or the insides of flowers blown up to massive size. "What kind of weapons are those?" "The kind designed by people who understand that war isn't just about destroying things," replied. "Tell me, Admiral, what happens when a poet designs a weapon, or a musician, or a teacher who spends her life showing children how to dream?" The crystals on the Heritage ships began to glow brighter. His tactical display showed energy readings unlike anything in his databases, not the focused destruction of plasma cannons or the brute force of kinetic weapons. This was something else entirely. "Battle stations," he shouted into his communicator. "All ships target the unknown vessels." "Sir," came his tactical officer's voice, "they're not targeting us. They're not even charging weapons. They're broadcasting something." "Broadcasting what?" "Everything, sir. Music, images, text files, video recordings. Thousands of different signals on hundreds of frequencies." Closed her eyes and listened to something could not hear. Maya's speech from her school graduation. She was so nervous, but she wanted to talk about hope, about building a future worth living in. "Your daughter is on those ships." "My daughter is leading them." The main screen switched to show the bridge of the lead Heritage ship. A young woman with dark eyes and determined expression stood at the command station. She wore a uniform unlike anything in its experience, practical but beautiful, with embroidered designs that seemed to flow like water. "Hello, Admiral," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly across the communication channel. "My name is Captain Maya of the Heritage ship Dawn's Promise. I believe you've been talking to my mother." Found his voice. "You are in violation of hegemony space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Maya tilted her head, studying him with the same unsettling confidence her mother had shown. "Admiral, do you know what my ship carries?" "Refugees and museum pieces." "Close. We carry the complete genetic library of Earth's biosphere, art and music from every human culture, the collected works of our greatest thinkers, and something else." The screen split to show views from inside Maya's ship. Saw vast gardens growing under artificial sunlight, children playing in parks that shouldn't exist on a starship, artists working on sculptures while musicians played in the background. It looked less like a warship and more like a floating city. "We carry hope," Maya continued, "and we've been sharing it." "Sharing it with whom?" Maya's smile was just like her mother's. "With everyone we've met in the past 3 months. Did you know your empire has edges, Admiral? Places where your control is weak, where people remember what life was like before the hegemony came." Felt ice forming in his stomach. You have been in hegemony space for 3 months, traveling from system to system, meeting people, showing them what we brought from Earth. Maya gestured, and the screen showed recordings of the heritage ships visiting other worlds. Aliens of various species walking through the human gardens, listening to human music, watching human children play. Impossible. Our security networks would have detected you. Would they? We weren't trying to hide. We were just trying to share. Maya's expression grew serious. Tell me, Admiral, when was the last time your security networks looked for people who wanted to give things away instead of take them? The question hit like a physical blow. Hegemony security was designed to detect threats, resistance, rebellion. It was not designed to track ships that broadcast art and offered gifts to everyone they met. What have you done? He whispered. Spoke from her cell. What we've always done best. We've shown people that there are other ways to live. The communication screen changed again, showing multiple star systems across the hegemony. On world after world, saw the same impossible sight. Crowds of people gathering in public spaces, no longer working in the efficient silence the hegemony required. They were singing, dancing, creating art on walls and in public squares. Children were asking questions their parents couldn't answer. Adults were forming groups to discuss ideas that had no practical purpose. Rebellion breathed. Revolution, corrected. The kind that starts in people's hearts instead of their hands. Maya's voice drew his attention back to the screen. Admiral, we've brought something special for you to see, something from the world you probably remember least. The screen switched to show a world, but not as remembered it. Instead of the orderly gray cities and efficient work centers, he saw explosion of color. Citizens had painted murals on building walls. They had planted gardens in public spaces. They were gathering in groups to share stories and music, just like the conquered species they were supposed to be controlling. Zephyr Prime, Maya said softly. 3 weeks ago, a heritage ship arrived there. Captain Sarah and her crew spent a week sharing human art and music with anyone who wanted to see it. Watched in horror as the screen showed children laughing as they played games with human children via video link. He saw adults learning to paint pictures that served no purpose except being beautiful. He saw his own people experiencing joy for no reason except that joy felt good. What have you done to them? He demanded. We showed them that life could be more than just existing efficiently, Maya replied. We showed them that asking questions could be fun instead of dangerous. We showed them what it feels like to create something beautiful instead of just useful. His voice was gentle now, almost sad. We showed them what you forgot to protect, Admiral. Stared at the screen in growing horror. In the heart of the hegemony, his own people were behaving like the conquered species he despised. Worse, they looked happy. Genuinely, impossibly happy in a way he had not seen look for generations. This is impossible, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. The hegemony has stood for 1,000 years. Order cannot be overthrown by songs and pictures. Can it? Maya asked from the screen. Admiral, what do you think happens when people discover that life doesn't have to be about following orders? When they learn that asking questions is more interesting than accepting answers? When they realize that creating something beautiful feels better than taking something useful? His communicator buzzed frantically. Reports were flooding in from across the empire. The same scenes playing out on dozens of worlds. Work centers where people had stopped working to paint murals on the walls. Military bases where soldiers were learning to play musical instruments. Administrative centers where bureaucrats were writing poetry instead of filing reports. Rebellion, he whispered. Revolution, corrected again from her cell, but not the kind you know how to fight. Turned to face her, his 4 eyes wide with something approaching panic. My fleets can crush this. 1 orbital bombardment per world. The chaos will end. Will it, Admiral? What happens when you destroy a city full of people who were singing together? What do the survivors think about your order then? They think about survival, about compliance. Shook her head. They think about the songs that died, and they remember them, and they teach them to their children in secret, and those children grow up knowing that your order required the murder of beauty. Maya's voice drew their attention back to the screen. Admiral, there's something else you should know. We didn't just visit the edges of your empire. We went to the core worlds too. The screen split to show multiple worlds simultaneously. On every one, the same impossible transformation was taking place. Citizens were abandoning their assigned duties to pursue activities that served no purpose except bringing joy. They were asking questions about why their society worked the way it did. They were demanding explanations their leaders couldn't provide. Your nephew requested permission to join our cultural exchange program, Maya continued. He wants to learn about human poetry. He says it helps him understand feelings he didn't know he had. His hands were shaking now. His nephew, who was supposed to inherit a command position in the hegemony fleet, wanted to study poetry with primitive humans. You've poisoned them, he said. Have we, or have we just reminded them what they already knew? His voice was gentle, almost compassionate. Tell me, Admiral, when you were young, did you ever wonder what would happen if you could choose your own path? Did you ever want to create something beautiful instead of efficient? The question hit memories had buried for decades. A young boy drawing pictures of impossible creatures in the margins of his duty reports, being punished for wasting time on frivolous activities, learning to suppress the urge to ask why or what if in favor of how and when. Those feelings were inefficient, he said weakly. Were they wrong? Could not answer. On the screen, he watched his nephew working alongside human artists, his face lit up with an expression the Admiral had forgotten could make. Pure joy in discovery, simple happiness in creation. Your empire is falling apart, he told Maya desperately. Without order, without structure, there will be chaos. Is there, look at your screens, Admiral, do you see chaos? Looked. He saw crowds of different species working together on art projects. He saw children playing games with conquered aliens and laughing at the same jokes. He saw former enemies sharing food and stories and music. It was not the ordered efficiency of the hegemony, but neither was it chaos. It was something else entirely. This won't last, he said. When people get hungry, when resources run low, when hard decisions need to be made, they'll remember that order is necessary. Stood up in her cell, her energy chains glowing brighter as she moved. You're right that hard decisions will need to be made. But here's what you haven't figured out yet: decisions made by people who care about each other are better than decisions made by people who only care about efficiency. Sentiment is not a basis for governance. Isn't it? Tell me, Admiral, why do you serve the hegemony? Because it is logical, because it provides order. But why do you want order? Paused. Because without it there is chaos. And why is chaos bad? Because it causes suffering. So you serve order because you want to reduce suffering. Yes. Smiled. Then you understand sentiment after all. You just call it logic. Maya's voice interrupted them. Admiral, we have an offer for you. Looked at the screen. What kind of offer? Join us. Bring your ships to Earth not as conquerors but as guests. Let your people experience what we're sharing. Let them choose for themselves what kind of life they want to live. And if they choose the hegemony, then they choose the hegemony. But let it be a real choice, made with full knowledge of the alternatives. Felt something breaking inside his chest. Everything he had believed, everything he had fought for, everything he had built his identity around was crumbling like sand. But underneath the collapse, something else was stirring. Something he had not felt since childhood. Curiosity. What would happen to me? He asked quietly. I have conquered 17 worlds. I have enslaved billions. Your people have every reason to hate me. His expression softened. Admiral, do you know what humans do with our worst enemies? Execute them, imprison them, torture them. Sometimes, but what we really try to do is understand them, help them understand themselves, give them a chance to become something better than what they were. Looked at the screens again. He saw his nephew teaching a song to human children. He saw conquered peoples working alongside their former oppressors to build something beautiful together. He saw the beginning of a galaxy where different species chose to cooperate instead of being forced to submit. You said I lost, he said too. You said I forgot to protect something. You forgot to protect the thing that made victory worth having, replied. You conquered territory, but you lost the reason territory matters. You gained power, but you forgot what power should be used for. Which is helping people flourish, protecting their ability to grow and learn and create and love, giving them the freedom to become more than they thought possible. Was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, no longer defenseless but no longer needing defense. Around it, heritage ships and hegemony vessels floated side by side, their crews beginning to talk instead of fight. The war is over, isn't it? He said finally. Nodded. The war you thought you were fighting ended the moment you forgot what wars are really about. But the war we were fighting, that's just beginning. It's the war for hearts and minds and dreams. It's the war to prove that cooperation is stronger than domination. It's the war to show that love builds more than fear ever could. She looked directly at him. And Admiral, it's a war where everyone who chooses to fight for life instead of death gets to win. Slowly removed his sidearm and placed it on the floor. For the first time in decades, he had no idea what would happen next. But for the first time in longer than that, he was eager to find out.